Welcome to the Human Frequency. In the past week, Etsy sellers have had their lives turned upside down by a failed experiment on their shops and livelihoods. Without notice or consent, Etsy decided to change every item's price on every seller's shop to include shipping. This gave customers no opportunity to see the actual item price or to see that sellers bundle shipping prices for multiple items. The plus shipping cost was only for U.S. orders, giving international customers the false impression that they would have to pay high shipping on top of the newly inflated item prices. The inflated prices without disclosure of the item and shipping costs to buyers made it look like every seller was scamming customers, and Etsy gave us no opportunity to opt out of the feature. The message boards lit up with angry and distressed comments from Etsy sellers worldwide. Many craftspeople depend on Etsy for their income and have gained financial independence using this tool. Now Etsy sellers are under attack. The experiment on the shops ran from July 19th through the 22nd. It was terminated earlier than the projected July 25th date, which was leaked by insiders posing as sellers on the forums. From what we read on the forums, sales all but disappeared during the run of this illegal experiment. And in the latest news today, no seller can even put any new items on their shop or edit their existing items.
I know, it's a real problem. They can't do anything. There's no renewing of items. There's no way to deactivate things. Some people are even getting double orders when they shouldn't be. It's just a mess right now. One big mess.
Well, I know for sure that the sales stopped during this period of the experiment because we didn't have any sales. All of a sudden, we had no sales.
Mm-hmm. And there were other people saying the exact same thing. It was like a ghost town and a tumbleweed rolls through. This is no exaggeration. There was nothing.
It was very devastating, actually, for the sellers. And we saw right off when we noticed it. And the funny thing is, I wouldn't have noticed it had I not gone to the shop to see what it looked like. Because when sales go away, my instinct is to go to the shop and see, is it looking okay? Do we need to rearrange things? And so I went and looked, and then you said, oh yeah, that's new. And it said that our small pyramid, which cost $50, was $60. And I said, wait a minute, we don't charge $60 for this item. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah. It says the shipping is included. But this is terrible. I was immediately upset by this because if someone bought two of them, it would not cost $10 each to ship them. It would cost just another couple of bucks to cover additional insurance. That's it.
And also, it's only one particular type of shipping. Yeah,
Right.
it doesn't. There's so many things that price does not take into account. It's extremely misleading, and yeah, it's funny you mentioned the appearance of the shop. Is it all right? It actually hasn't been all right since the first week of June, when Etsy completely overhauled their user interface and made it virtually unusable. And it was the same story. They just did it without warning. And I guess they technically warned people, but they gave them no option to opt out of this. And it was horrible. All of the statistics became completely inaccurate, all the viewings, all the likes. And again, all of the sellers hated it and demanded that it be changed back. And of course, as per usual, Etsy did not listen. So no surprise there. You know, the long-term sellers have it the worst. And we've been on Etsy for just over 2 years now, but there are people that have been on since the beginning in 2005, and those people really just feel this the worst. And they say on these forums that this is not the first time Etsy's done this. They always change things. Summer is their open season to just go about experimenting. They give themselves carte blanche to do whatever they want, and you know, it doesn't. They don't take into account anything. But just, they're like the mad scientists. Mm-hmm. They're cackling to themselves and mixing stuff from test tube to test tube, and they just don't care.
Well, Etsy is a very important tool for craftspeople who have gotten out of the working world matrix, who have made their passion their livelihood. And I feel very strongly right now that this platform is under attack heavily because so many people have used this tool to gain freedom. And the thing is, Etsy knows that they can change the interface. They know that they can change the appearance because we've agreed to these terms of use that says they can do that. That's okay. That's their website. They can do that. What they can't do, and where this stepped over the line of legality, was that they changed the prices of items. These aren't their items to change. They are a credit card processing company where we can put up pictures. Let's be real about what Etsy is. They do not have the legal right. And I'm serious, this is a legal issue. And we're going to tell you about the letter that Gabriel wrote to Etsy.
Yeah, but more on that later.
Well, they legally can't change the prices. That's not their place, and that is interference. And one business cannot interfere in the business of another business. It's illegal, especially if the business is registered, which our business entities are. It's very important now just to understand what I mean by registered. Many people on Etsy think that it's enough to have a business like a company, an LLC or an incorporated or something like that. I'm talking about the registration of the legal name, which you can listen to information on in some of our other episodes. If you scroll down a little in the videos, you'll see government. The government is a lie. The
exposing the big lie. Yeah,
right.
If you're new to the channel, you can go into the archive several episodes back and look for that one video that says exposing the big lie, and we talk about this in detail. And
in this case, though, for Etsy sellers, just so you know, we're talking about registering the legal name, not starting an LLC or a company of a different kind if your legal name is still not registered. So that's just what I wanted to make clear. So Gabriel wrote a great letter because he's the manager of our shop on Etsy, and he informed Etsy of our legal rights.
Well, I informed them of the standing of my business entity, and that basically what you just said, Sharon, they can modify their shop, the layout, the look of it. They can do all of that till they're blue in the face. But one business entity cannot adversely impact the revenue of another business entity in the way that they chose to do it. And that was the point that I was making. And I basically just gave them a cease and desist.
You did.
Stop doing this within a reasonable amount of time. I understand that people make mistakes, and so I gave them a reasonable amount of time to fix the error. And they came through in about 20 minutes, to make a long story short.
Well, what happened is we did not go after Etsy. We didn't say, Etsy, we're not going after Etsy. We're going after Etsy's CEO, because once you've registered your legal name, you are in compliance with the law. The CEO of Etsy, Josh Silverman, I assure you, is not in compliance, or he wouldn't be calling himself Josh Silverman. If you call yourself by a legal fiction, a first and last name, then you don't know the law.
You're out of compliance.
And everybody is out of compliance for the most part.
Well, it's false impersonation is what it is.
Everyone is out of compliance because they don't know the law, because those who are hoarding all the money and ruling the world keep it to themselves. They know the law. They get to keep their money. They don't pay taxes. They know the law. I assure you, though, that Josh Silverman, CEO of Etsy, does not know the law, or he wouldn't be calling himself by that name. And so we knew that we could directly go after him with a lawsuit. And Etsy did comply quickly. It was very, very strange to see what happened immediately following the receipt of the letter.
And I just want to take this opportunity to make something perfectly clear. Now, I am not claiming credit for this very quick turnaround. However, you must note that it was quite a coincidence for the early termination of this so-called experiment, which was set to go until the 25th.
Well, and that, according to one of the shills on the forums.
That's right.
And, it's possible. Okay, I say it's possible, but unlikely, that Etsy was responding to the angry messages and comments on the boards. It's possible that so many sellers threatened to leave Etsy that they terminated the experiment. But I tend not to think that's why they did it. I mean, what do they care? They're just playing with this thing. In fact, for all we know, they are going under right now. So we're going to actually get more into the history of Etsy and some of the latest news on Etsy, as well as their stocks, later in this episode. For now, let's talk about how the experiment ended. 20 minutes after the receipt of the letter, the termination process began.
That's true.
And that was on Friday, the 21st.
Well, you actually had, that was an interesting thought of yours. Like, when we were right in the middle of this fiasco, you had the interesting thought that perhaps this is just an engineered insolvency, and we're just seeing the beginning stages of it. So that very much piqued my interest because, this has insider trading written all over it.
Absolutely. This is a shady deal going on here. Something really bad is going on with Etsy. It's really dark and it's really negative. And I did have a suspicion right off that they were just trying to dissolve the company, because there's no way that their sellers would stay under these circumstances. Most of the sellers on Etsy don't know anything about the law. They don't know the rights they have. They don't know that Etsy was committing an illegal action against their businesses. So they're just ready to leave, as we are too. We will be moving off of Etsy. It's becoming unusable. And more about that, we'll keep you updated where our new shop's going to be. But yeah, this was very, it looked fishy to me. Like, I thought that they were really trying to dissolve the business, because if they have a few thousand sellers leave right then and there, think about how many thousands of dollars less revenue they're getting. I mean, each seller, any seller that's making a living off of Etsy, is paying a good amount of fees to the company.
That's true.
Yeah, it's 3%. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly the percentage per sale.
It's 3.5%.
Yeah.
And then there's listing fees and renewal fees.
Believe me, it racks up.
It does
Yeah.
add up.
Yeah.
It certainly does. And
they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year, by the way. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was in the 300 million range per year of revenue.
so, yeah, 20 minutes go by, the experiment begins to end, and sure enough, the message boards on the forum just, again, are lit up with things along the lines of, sweet blessed relief. And again, this is an across-the-board thing. Everyone is just so relieved for it to be done.
But then it jumped back again.
But well, here's the thing, this experiment created a feeling of just kind of a general uncertainty, because also the mood was, yeah, this is done, but who knows when they're just going to spring the next experiment on us.
Oh, they did.
And that may be even worse, which it was.
Well, on the 25th, actually, there was nothing worse, in my opinion, than what they did with the prices. The next experiment was bad, but I didn't think it was as bad. On the 25th, the day that this experiment was supposed to stop, they did the next experiment, which was to hide vital information, such as descriptions and shipping policies, from the buyers. That is just ridiculous, in my opinion, and in the opinion of all the sellers. That's the next experiment. That one only lasted a few hours. And then today, this is not an experiment. This is another attack on the shops. I mean, if we can't list items or edit items, we can't sell anything. They don't want us doing business.
Yeah, and this goes in line with what we have talked about many times in our previous episodes. If you listen to us with any degree of regularity, you know our critical stance on the iPhone people. So to hide relevant information is, these iPhone people have trouble reading as it is. Why compound the problem?
Well, that's true. I really would prefer it if the shoppers in our Etsy shop would look at it on a desktop or a laptop so they could see the items clearly, know what they're ordering. That way they get what they want and they understand everything about it. You can read the shipping policies, you can read the item descriptions easily. It would be a lot easier. But the thing is, people just use the phones, and many people are shopping that way. But hiding information is not going to help the phone people.
Yeah, it was a big problem. And speaking of problems, the shills on the forum during this experiment that was a real issue, because everyone, you can tell in an instant when someone's real and when they're not. And when someone is using language that makes it very obvious that they're working for the company, it really just devalues the whole thing.
Well, a lot of people noticed that this was going on. For example, one of these insiders, and by the way, they posted on every forum from day till night. These guys don't even take breaks. I think they just get a different person on the shift, honestly, for that username.
Every thread that was even remotely critical of the experiment that was going on, they just went right in there and started attacking.
And these very...
Just the same formulaic responses, too.
These very users, they would use the Etsy language, like they'd say, you agreed to the TOU. I don't know any Etsy seller that uses terms like TOU. That's the terms of use. But no real seller is talking like that. The real sellers, you could tell, they were distraught. They were upset. These users were not upset at all by it. And they throw around words like TOU. Oh, you agreed to the TOU. Yes, I did. I did agree to it. I agreed that you could change your website and do whatever stupid stuff you want to it, but you can't change my prices.
Right.
Okay, that's where you break the law.
Well, that's where the line is drawn. And yeah, they all have the same names. They're there all day and into the night. So they're just trading off, one leaves and another takes over that username. And they're posing as shop owners on there. So it's really insidious
It's
what they
pathetic.
got going on. on there. And also creating fake positivity threads like, don't you just love the new changes? Like, give me a break.
Nobody loved it. It was across the board. Everyone hated it.
It was across the board. And it's so obvious.
Yeah. So there's another issue here with, in one business, that being Etsy, interfering with the business operations of another. It's not just that it's illegal. It makes it impossible for the business to operate. And that translates to the morale. That affects the morale of the seller. And when you have low morale, you can't sell. Trust me, when things are going bad in life, I know when we had to move suddenly and we were overwhelmed with that, you wouldn't believe it. Sales in our shop disappeared as soon as the stressful time began, and it had nothing to do with the shop. It's just that energetically, a businessman or woman cannot function under that sort of interference and stress.
Oh yeah, it manifests in the business world. It's not. Many people think that's just like your private life and social situations. No, it's in finance too.
Yeah. I mean, with the low morale going on, no one can sell. And also, this is a slow time of year because we're in the summer lull for these kinds of businesses. Around Christmas time in the fall, that's when business picks up for craftspeople because that's when the gifts are being purchased. This is a slow time of year to begin with. And to just kill the sales of these shops, I know it really upset a lot of sellers, even more than it upset us, because we're in compliance. The difference is we have the law on our side. These other sellers, unfortunately, for the most part, are unaware of the law, although you did post the links to Doug's paper to explain the law.
I did. Well, at least I attempted to. I don't know if anyone actually understood it, but I tried to inform people that this is illegal and here's why. And of course, that posting was attacked by shills as well. So it's that to me was just an instant confirmation of the fact that I was right.
But again, any Etsy sellers listening to this broadcast, I really recommend that you check out the links that we have or the videos we have here on YouTube that explain how to register your legal name. And that's especially exposing the big lie. Government is business. Don't get scared off by it. It's not a big, we're not big conspiracy theorists here. We're just explaining the law and that government is business. So if you're new to all this, it would be great for you to know your legal rights. And this is what it is. Your legal name is a business and you need to register it. Once you do that, no one can infringe on your right to do business anymore in any way, shape, or form.
So at this point, I feel that everyone is aware of exactly what went on. We kind of went over some details here, but now I just want to talk about why it happened. What were the reasons? In other words, what were the excuses that Etsy gave for doing this test? And I just found today the document that they released on the 19th, where they explain what they're doing. Of course, they never bothered to notify me by email that they were doing it. It's just they post this thing, and if you happen to be looking at that time and find it, then you know what's going on. Everyone else is kind of left in the dark, and that really irked me to see that.
Yeah, they thought they could just post it in the forum.
So far after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they wanted to, their reason for this is they wanted to make the shipping costs more transparent. So they said, transparency and shipping costs. My question is, how is bundling the shipping with the price of the item transparent? Having the item price and the shipping price separately is transparent, and that's how we ran our shop. And then when people would put multiple items in the cart, they would see that the shipping only went up a small amount because we don't charge over and over and over again.
Right,
this
that
makes
would be
it look
unethical.
It's not transparent at all. It makes it look like we're all scam artists just trying to get, extra shipping money. And it's not that way at all. If you ordered two $50 items, you wouldn't pay $10 for each of them. You'd pay $10 for one, and then I think it's about $3 for the second one just to pay for the insurance needed. It might even be less than that.
Right. And if something gets bumped up into a larger package, then that's going to cost more. It's done so that every contingency is covered. But when that one specific shipping thing is out there, you can't
So it's the opposite effect of what
Right.
they said. So they claimed it was for transparency in shipping. This is absolutely not true. But one of the other reasons that they gave, which may be true, is that they wanted to make it easier for smartphone users. The smartphone users constitute 65% of business on Etsy, and the shareholders want to see this increase. I'm not exactly sure why it's so important that people are ordering on smartphones. I mean, I personally would recommend you order any craft item on a computer where you can really see what it looks like. I don't think that purchases need to be made in haste. I use the smartphone when I'm out, but not for stuff like that. I use it for what I have to do, and then I go home if I need to order something.
And furthermore, the type of product we sell, which is Orgonite, that very much conflicts with cell phones specifically for their energetic reasons.
Right. The items that we sell are designed to neutralize cell phone radiation.
Right.
So we actually recommend that you don't use the cell phone at all to start with. Even, sometimes somebody says to me, oh, I can't really afford any Orgonite. To that, I usually say, well, I have a recipe online and a video, you can make it. If they say I can't even afford the materials, I say, well, to start with, turn off your phone, turn off your Wi-Fi. That's going to do a world of difference right there. So if you can't neutralize it, just get rid of it. I say get rid of it and neutralize anything else. So it does conflict with our ideology for sure. So I recommend you don't order on a smartphone. Etsy wants you to order on a smartphone, and they have the mistaken impression that the smartphone user wants to see the shipping bundled with the item price. And I assure you they don't, because we do get a lot of orders from smartphones, and we had no orders during the test period. And a lot of other shops reported the same problem.
Yeah. Give them a quick answer, an answer that is also completely incorrect. So good going, guys.
Well, there is a reason for this, though. And Etsy's reasons are not the real reasons why this is happening. I have lately heard from other people who have gotten out of the working matrix and out of their slave jobs. For example, a friend who has an Airbnb and is able to get by on it and no longer work at a slave job. She's being attacked. Everyone's being attacked. Now there's new rules.
That's exactly what they don't want.
They don't want people using these wonderful tools. I know people who drive Uber. I know people who use TaskRabbit. There's all these resources now for people to stop working for terrible bosses, for low pay and high taxes. And this is what it is. And I know for sure, I could say for sure right now, there's a lot of reasons why this is going on. And at first glance, this is what I saw. I saw Etsy attacking its sellers and its customers. And my first thought was, Etsy must be going out of business because they want to just implode their business and get a big tax write-off. That was my first thought.
And mine too, because if they're attacking the sellers and the buyers, well, without those, what is Etsy after all?
Well, they changed CEOs recently, and that may have something to do with this decision to change everything on the site.
Yeah, that's right. They had Chad Dickerson, who was a longtime CEO, and he was replaced with Josh Silverman back in May of this year.
Yeah, on May 3rd, this is when this happened, and at the same time, Etsy laid off 8% of its staff, which came to 80 employees. And the stock has been plummeting, and it's gone down actually about 30% since going public 2 years ago. So investors are not pleased with this. I really think that Etsy's having financial trouble. And my first thought was, instead of fixing the financial problems by restructuring the company and improving it, they're just going to implode the whole thing and lose a ton of money and get a tax write-off. That was just my first impression. I don't have proof of it. It's just something that occurred to me as a theory. Of course, my opinions have kind of changed because I'm learning new things as I go. I have learned that a 2% stake of Etsy is held by Black and White Capital LP, and they are urging strategic changes. They are even urging possibly a sale of Etsy. And this was all found on Bloomberg News. And so that might be part of it.
It's hard to tell really what's going on. We have to observe what we see and, in our case, report on it. But again, these are just observations.
Well, Etsy is attacking several groups of people here because this is obviously an attack. Otherwise, the site would be working right now. They're attacking small businesses, artisans and creative people, female entrepreneurs in particular, and anyone who wants to get out of the corporate rat race and out of urban living. Etsy was created in 2005 to help these very groups of people, and now it's making it increasingly difficult for any of these businesses to operate. I really think that there is an attack on small business, and especially on businesses that are maybe not paying as much to the IRS as the IRS wants to see. So one of the things with these kinds of websites like Etsy, eBay, I think for the Uber people too, and Airbnb, is you don't get any of it reported to the IRS until you've earned $20,000 plus 200 transactions. At least that's what it is for Etsy. I think the $20,000 amount is pretty much across the board for all of these types of websites. And what happens is that people just aren't reporting their taxes. I mean, not that anyone owes taxes. This is also in the episode about registering your legal name as a business entity. This is all just a big scam. But the IRS wants to take advantage of people who don't know their rights, who don't know the law, and who aren't properly registered. And the IRS is just a business, and they can take your money, as much of it as they want. They can do anything they want if you're out of compliance. So according to Bloomberg on July 21st, it's currently required to notify the IRS if you make $20,000.
Right. And the 200 transactions only applies to Etsy. And that's an and, by the way, 20,000 and 200 transactions, not or.
Well, the Senate has proposed a new cap on that to being $1,000. So now they're proposing that these sites will have to notify the IRS when the seller or user is making $1,000. So this is going to mean that the IRS is going to get a lot more revenue. So this is definitely an attack on businesses that have been able to avoid these fraudulent fees to the IRS, which it's all fraud, by the way. Please listen to How to Register Your Business Entity and check out Douglas Joseph's website, which is outlined in the video about this process, because it's all fraud. It's absolutely, it's nothing you have to pay, but people think they do. So now they're going to have to report if they make a little over $1,000.
Yeah, and that's quite a drop from 20,000 to 1,000. And again, this is all completely fraudulent, but if you're out of compliance, just like you said, they can take whatever they want, they can do whatever they want. Once you get in compliance, there's no longer a contract between that business entity and yours. And when there's no contract, there ain't nothing they can do.
Well, this is clearly an attack on small business, independent entrepreneurs, and people who want to get out of those slave jobs like I did. 2 years ago, I quit my job. We had been on Etsy only a few months at that time selling our product. And when I quit, it was extremely scary because all of a sudden I wasn't making anything. I mean, we weren't making much on Etsy back then. But I went for it anyway because I really believe in the work we do. And a lot of people really benefit from it. And we have a lot of support from people who love our Orgonite and have found that it helps them in their lives. And of course, I'm not in this just for a buck, obviously, because I have a video on the site that explains how to totally knock off my Orgonite and make it yourself. I just want people to have it. And people have been kind enough to support us in our mission. We've gifted 5,000 of them into the environment. That is our mission, is to just spread the energy around.
Widespread distribution of tactical Orgonite pieces.
And most of the people on Etsy, they have really ethical businesses. They just want to live. They just want to do something beautiful in this world, create something lovely, and make a living doing it. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And they want to be left alone. And that's their right.
Well, a lot of these people on Etsy are women, and especially women with families. And interestingly enough, in Digital Commerce 360, an Etsy survey taken in 2015 shows that women make up 86% of Etsy sellers. That is a huge percentage. This to me is clearly an attack on females and especially female entrepreneurs. We all know this is a man's world, right? Women have always been pushed out of business. There's been the glass ceiling. Now there's a platform for women to make their own way in life and to run their own businesses.
Mm-hmm. And without the glass ceiling.
They can do whatever they want. This is their business. And in fact, Etsy businesses consider themselves to be smaller than small business, micro businesses.
Right.
And it's a great way for people to make a living doing what they love. And a lot of these women have children. They have families to support. So I definitely see this as an attack on women in business. Clearly, at 86%, women clearly are the majority of Etsy sellers. Now, here's another one. 39% of the people on Etsy are living in rural places. So most of them are in the city, but 39% is a pretty big percent.
And we're proud to be a part of that percentage too.
When we joined, we lived in Los Angeles. But what was so beautiful about being an Etsy seller was that we could leave the city life. So A lot of them, 39% of them, have done that or have already been doing that and are able to make a living without living in an oppressive, polluted urban environment. They don't want people living out in the country. They want people to be in the city. That's all part of Agenda 21. Get them off the land, get them put in the boxes in the city, taking public transit, living in their transit villages, going to their job, going back. That's what they want. They want everybody in the city life.
Well, right. Crammed in just means easier to control. And that's on so many levels, by the way.
And did you know that 56% of Etsy sellers are college educated? So not only do we have rural people, women, but we have college educated people. I don't think they want a college educated woman living in the country to make any money. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it sounds like to me too. And the median age is 39. And that surprised me. I thought it would be a little higher, actually.
And this one really surprised me. I thought that Etsy was largely a hobby site, but 51% of sellers on Etsy make their income off of it. That means that just over half are relying on this platform for their living. That surprised me because I thought that it was just a for fun kind of a thing, which it is. But it's really actually a wonderful thing to see that this many craftspeople are able to make ends meet doing what they love.
Yeah, just over half. That stat surprised me too,
And only 36% have full-time employment outside of Etsy. That's great because for those that aren't making a full income off of it, they don't have to work full-time at least. They can work part-time and run their Etsy shop part-time and make a living. So as you could see, Etsy allows women to have a livelihood. It allows people to get out of the city and into the country, and it allows people to make a living doing what they love. And 65% of Etsy sellers said they would not take out a bank loan. Bank loans are what run our farcical economy.
That's right.
They don't like that at all. The way that we create currency, so we are creating currency out of nothing all the time. That's why the dollar is inflated and getting worse and worse. So every time someone takes out a bank loan, do you think the bank is actually pulling out some cash and putting it in an account somewhere? No.
Nope.
They're just typing an entry in a computer. They're creating new dollars out of nothing.
Just numbers on a screen.
How are they allowed to do this? Well, we live under a system of fractional reserve banking. This is good for you Etsy sellers to know this too. You wonder why your dollar's declining. You wonder why the shipping keeps going up. You have to pay the postal service more every year. We have a declining dollar. And we use fractional reserve banking, which means that the bank only needs to have $1 in it for every 10 they claim to have. So a lot of this money is out of nothing. So Etsy sellers don't want to take bank loans. They want to have small, manageable businesses, and they don't need a lot of money. They make 17% make under $25,000 a year, and they get by on that because they live in the country. You see how it works?
Well, here's an interesting thing. If all debts were repaid, there would be no money in circulation. All debts couldn't be repaid because only a small amount of them would be, and then the money supply would cease to exist. Banks would all close their doors, become insolvent, and I think I had a dream about that once.
Well, I had a dream that I presented the ANC and it worked.
That's the assumed name certificate, by the way.
So any Etsy sellers that are new to all these business ideas, it's great to get informed about this because a lot of us, we just want to do our craft. We just want to be in nature. We want to just enjoy life. All of that's doable, but it's very important to understand the world of business. And I was long allergic to the world of business. I didn't want to know anything about it. But what makes business become less scary is registering your legal name. It's the simplest thing to do, and once you learn the process and you learn what it means, you gain complete freedom. You're operating entirely under a fictional name, and you, the living woman, are outside of that.
Or man, for the 14% on Etsy.
Right. So it's very important to know there's nothing to be afraid of with business. You just have to learn the simple law that they won't teach you in school. And once you learn it, you are free to operate, and that is tax-free, by the way, and no licenses, no taxes. And you'll see why when you read the paper that Douglas Joseph wrote, which we reference in that episode, and you listen to the episode exposing the big lie because you've been lied to. None of this stuff is necessary. You can live and work freely and run a business freely. So learn about that, and Gabriel just enlightened you as to the debt situation in this country and in the world. It's important to understand money. You got to know what money is. those dollars, that paper money, and those numbers in your bank account, those aren't actually money. They don't translate to money. There's nothing backing it, no gold backing it. Just remember that. So you got to stop being allergic to business. Anyway, thank you very, very much for listening. I'm very happy to be able to share this knowledge with other Etsy sellers and with everybody who's been extremely supportive of us over these last 2 years. Thank you, everybody, for buying our Oregonite and allowing us to continue our gifting mission in California, Oregon, Nevada, and beyond. You can learn more about our work at thekembo.com. And please just keep up with us, and we'll be letting you know where we're moving, because the shop is going to be moving.
Yeah, to any Etsy sellers who have found this episode, we will keep you posted. Thank you for listening, first of all. And secondly, we will keep you posted on where we go from here. It will not be on Etsy because they are simply becoming completely unusable. So please check out thekembo.com. You can find the link to the Etsy store for now, as well as links to all of the other stuff that we were doing.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Human Frequency. See you again next time.